Hi guys, and welcome to FTM Transtastic. I'm Emil and I hope that you're all doing well. I hope that you don't mind the fan in the background and the dog eating his food. It is way too hot and humid to not have a fan on, and the dog needs his food, so gotta roll with the punches. Anyway, this week's topic is dating a cis person, which is something that I don't have experience with because I am in a relationship with another trans person. I'm not dating, but if I were dating, I would be wary of dating cis people. I can't say I particularly like that I would be, but I'm pretty sure that I would. And it's not because I think all cis people are bad or something like that. I know a lot of amazing and supportive cis people who've never made me feel weird in the slightest about being trans. It's just because having experienced a relationship where we are both trans, I have to say there is an understanding when it comes to things like dysphoria and just going through life as a trans person that I really appreciate having with a partner. It's an understanding beyond words because you don't have to worry about explaining it or them not understanding because you know that they understand. Now that doesn't mean that if I were dating I would just completely rule out all cis people from possible dates. Like, absolutely not. I just mean that my spontaneous feeling is that it would probably be easier to date another trans person. But then again, it really depends on the person and everyone's an individual and you gotta vibe with the person beyond just being cis or being trans, so it's very nuanced. But if we're strictly speaking of dating a cis person or dating a trans person, and what I like spontaneously feel about that as someone who has no experience with dating a cis person, then, you know, that is what I think. That is how I think I would feel in that situation. Like, just spontaneously, if I had the choice between going on a date with a cis person or a trans person, if they were equally, like, as appealing as people, then I would probably go with the trans person. But obviously, when choosing who to be in a relationship with, I obviously don't choose people based only on them being trans. I mean, that's just like a bonus. But if you don't vibe with the person to begin with, if you don't have common interests, if you have no like attraction of any sort, then, you know, there's no point. That's obvious, but I don't know why I'm stating the obvious. But there you go. Again, it depends a lot on the person as well. Like, whether the person were cis or trans, I wouldn't date them to begin with if I didn't know them well enough to feel safe with them. But I can also imagine why a trans person might prefer dating cis people. Like, that's not my experience, but this is just me thinking and imagining. Sometimes being trans feels like it infiltrates every part of your life. And if you really wish that you could forget about it, then maybe dating a cis person could potentially make you think less about being trans. So with that in mind, I can definitely understand why another trans person might, if presented with two people that are equally nice and one is trans and one is cis, while I would probably pick the trans person, they would probably pick the cis person. Like, I can understand that. Then again, that's really not a realistic scenario. That's probably never gonna happen to you in your life, but this is just a very simplified way of sort of explaining different points of view. There are many layers to people's dating preferences, from social to emotional to sexual, etc., etc. So in a way, I find that this is a topic that's sort of tricky to talk about because I want to be honest, but at the same time, I don't want to sound insensitive, you know? So to clarify, for any cis person out there who may feel worried that all cis people make all trans people uncomfortable by default, that is definitely not the case. Like, I, for example, have cis friends that I will literally forget that they are cis because they are so involved and supportive of, you know, like, trans things. Everyone's an individual. You can be a great person who makes everyone feel safe, or you can be a shit person who makes everyone uncomfortable, whether or not you're cis or trans or gay or straight or whatever. We all know this. But when we're talking about something like this in a relatively short video like this, then we sort of have to make these sort of generalized statements somehow, because otherwise it's just gonna be a long conversation and it's gonna be pretty hard to talk about it. So you gotta make sort of generalized statements from your experiences. You know, what is the most common experience that I have with cis people versus trans people? Well, it is that cis people whether or not they are well-meaning, are not as educated about trans things and what it's like to be trans as a trans person is. And trans people, in my experience, tend to be more sensitive towards other trans people as to not to trigger their dysphoria or say something that is inappropriate or something like that. That's not to say that every cis person I've met has been a horrible person that has not cared about my feelings. That's not what I mean at all. But when it comes to who you're gonna date, I personally prefer to not have to educate the person about trans things, because I just don't like that. That's not to say that you can't have a wonderful relationship just because you have to explain to someone how you're feeling. I mean, in other areas of life, I have to explain how I'm feeling because there are times when I feel something that my partner or my friends may not automatically understand. That's just human life. But when it comes to dysphoria and being trans, I like that I don't have to explain that to the person that I'm closest to. Anyway, so that's what I have to say, and trans people, if you want to, you are very free to tell me if you experience a difference in dating cis people versus dating trans people, because I'd be very interested to hear that. So thank you for watching, and have a lovely day, and I will see you next time. Love you. Bye.